let's talk about Actionscript and how to best set it up to create Flash games. Best practice for Actionscript is to create a layer called script and put all of the Actionscript on that layer. Now you can put Actionscript on different layers, and you can put Actionscript on layers with other objects on it. But for debugging your code, it is best to always just put it in one place. Now you'll notice there's a little A on that particular frame. That means that the script has been added on that frame. And actually you can put action scripts on different frames, but once again, best practice on the first frame on its own layer, let's have action script. So if I select that frame and press F9 on the keyboard, I'll get the action script window. The action script window is usually organized into the following sections. And we can kind of comment out and describe these sections by putting the two slashes in. And that's the slash right next to the shift key, right? That shares the key with the exclamation point. Whenever you put that in, ActionScript or Flash is going to ignore any ActionScript on that line. So you can just use that to comment it and provide yourself or other people that are working with the program some information about what you're doing. So how I divide up the ActionScript, the first section is imports. Imports are other classes that have already been written that are included with Flash that you may want to use. Now some imports are automatically loaded into Flash, so you don't have to call them, but they want to keep the load time down, so other imports they leave out until you actually need them. In those cases, you'll just actually have to call them. In this case, I'm importing the Flash transitions tween, Flash transitions easing, and Flash events event. The next section is declarations. Declarations are setting your variables. Your variables are the holding place for information, whether it be text, numerical values, or even special variables called arrays, which will hold multiple objects of a certain value. So we'll declare all of our variables, and we can even set the initial values right in this declaration settings. The next setting of the action script is the initialize setting. The initialize essentially are all the actions or code that will run when the Flash movie initially loads. And these are things that will need to load before anything can be played. And usually at the end of the initialize section, I put a stop command just so that we can stop after loading that. And then the game essentially is going to wait for user input or events before it will do anything else. The next section is probably the most important section. It's the functions. Functions are collections of code that are going to be run at certain time. They are essentially called. And the way you call a function, essentially you just type the name of the function. So in this case, the function setText has been declared here, and we declare it by putting the name function first, then a space, then the name of the function, whatever you choose, and then usually two parentheses, an open and close. Sometimes we can put values in those parentheses, but we'll cover that later on. Then after the function, we have block codes, which are curly braces. You always need an open curly brace and a closed curly brace for each function. Most of the problems that we'll have running applications will be syntax problems having to do with open and closing curly braces, whether it's in functions or iterations or conditional statements. So you have to be very careful about that. So if I wanted to run the function setText, all I would need to do is somewhere else in the application. In this case, it could be during the initialize. You just call the function by typing its name and then the open and close parentheses, and we usually end the line in ActionScript with a semicolon.